going to say was if you can, and that obviously it does depend a lot on the exact job you do, who you work with, whether you get along with those people, etc. It obviously depends on those factors a lot. But if you can manipulate the situation to be where if you go in and you work hard and that makes a difference to how somebody else's day is, if you can learn to find the joy in that or find fulfillment in that, that makes a big difference to how you feel. I work in a shop now, right? For everybody listening, we are in the middle of a global pandemic where it's a health crisis, and I work in a shop where 400 people a day come in and out of that shop. All right, I could leave now and be fine and go and find a different job, but I don't. And I've said this to my colleagues. We had an annual meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I said in front of everybody, if I worked even in a different branch, I don't think I'd be in that company. I think I would just walked out.
No,
because I've got a little bit of money in my savings.
That's where I'm going to take this in a minute.
But it's I am here for those people, those 10 people, and it's not like I'm not saying that they're perfect, and I'm not saying that we don't bicker sometimes or argue sometimes or disagree sometimes, and I'm not saying I don't come home at the end of the day and be like, oh, I've had a shit day or anything like that. I complain about my job probably more than any other human being on earth, considering what I'm saying. And it sounds really ironic, and I'm sure the people, if anybody is listening who I work with, they'll say like, is this guy for real? He never stops complaining. And that's true, but that's because I can see that it could be better. It's not because I'm thinking, oh, this is awful. It's because I can see it could be better. But I think the trouble with most people's jobs, I know I've been talking for 20 minutes. The trouble with most people's jobs is the environment is the responsibility of the leaders, not necessarily the responsibility of the people doing the work. And there's only so much you can control. And when that lack of leadership, not management, but the actual lack of leadership reflects that, and that's why people get themselves into these situations where they just I just go in and I just do my job. I go in and I just do my job and go home. That is a bad mentality. And there's a few different ways to go. You can leave and do something else, or you can work, even if it's just for you or your mates who work there as well. Even if it's just for you to just flip that mentality a little bit and think, I'm not just here because it's my job. Because once you get into that mentality, that's when that fatigue fog comes in, because you're just trying to get through the day, doing as little as possible. And I think that side of things is massively underappreciated in terms of how it affects your stress levels, how it affects all, I've got a list of things written down here, in terms of your stress levels have a massive impact on your physical health, obviously your mental health as well. And I think that, for me, is the number one thing. It's that lack of leadership, lack of cohesion, lack of kind of a sense of fulfillment, a sense of purpose. Why do you work there? Why does that company exist at all? And I think once you can kind of create a bit of momentum, that can make a massive difference.
Definitely.
What I did want to talk about, actually, and I know I'm just conscious of time, what I did want to talk about was stress at work, because I don't feel like there's a better opportunity to get into that, or stress in your life, I suppose. I don't think there's going to be a better podcast opportunity to get into that than the work one, because I think stress is such an under talked about aspect of physical health. Not just how you feel. Obviously, it affects how you feel, but actual physical health. I was doing a little bit of research before this, which I don't normally do, to be honest, because I already knew a bunch of this, but I was like, I'm going to just see what the internet says, and I've Googled effects of stress on your physical health, effects of too much cortisol in your bloodstream long term, etc., etc., etc. So I'm just going to run through a couple of things I wrote down, which was, so basically, when you get stressed as animals, what happens is there's a chemical in your blood called cortisol, which is the stress chemical. So when you are half asleep through the middle of the night and you hear a noise and you're like, bang, wide awake, and you're like, what's going on? You're ready. It's that fight or flight, fight or flight reaction. So it's there for a very, very good reason, to keep you alive in life or death situations. And the trouble is, your body doesn't know that the stress you feel at work, the stress you feel, whether it be working from home and you've got deadlines, or whether it be there's a queue of people waiting at the till or whatever, your body can't differentiate between whether it's a fight or flight, life or death situation or not. So it lets low levels of cortisol into your blood all the time when you're stressed. And that's when your immune system dips, because in order to heighten your senses, i.e. sight and hearing, etc., and initiate that kind of, adrenaline, it has to lower other systems which are deemed non-essential in the short term. If you are stressed, well, long term, that means your immune system and other things are lowered in the long term. And obviously in the past, 12, 13, 14 months, we've all learned that having a poor immune system is a big fucking deal. And that's why people who are stressed all the time are poorly all the time. They pick up colds easier than others because their immune system is actually lower than it's supposed to be. So I Googled the effects of too much cortisol in your bloodstream. The long-term effects include headaches, trouble sleeping, weakened immune system, high blood pressure, fertility problems in both males and females, and increased risk of heart disease. And that's just the physical aspects. The mental aspects, higher risk of depression, higher irritability, poor decision-making, lack of focus, and feeling overwhelmed. And that is nowhere near the full list. Just think about those things. If you've got a headache, you're less likely to go to the gym. If you've had trouble sleeping, you're less likely to hit your step count that day. If you have high blood pressure, or you're more irritable than you should be, you're more likely to overeat that day. All of these things have a massive impact on your calories in and your calories out, and nobody talks about it. How many PTs do you know that talk about managing your stress levels? It just not talked about at all, or very, very little. So yeah, try not to stress is the advice.
Even the physical aspects lead into the thing. So like if you're
it's
constantly
a compounding effect.
You're constantly run down. It's just snowballing all the time, 100%. There was something I was going to pick out on that, and I just totally lost it again. Sorry.
One other thing I was going to mention was, obviously we've talked about practicality is important in terms of you might not just be able to walk into the office tomorrow. If anybody quits their job tomorrow, I'm taking full fucking credit, right? If you are not in a position to walk into the office or wherever you work and quit tomorrow, that's fine. But one other aspect to take into account, bear in mind we talked about money not being the be all and end all, which is a very easy thing to say. Don't get us wrong. I'm not saying it's that simple. But another thing I kind of stumbled upon was a study that looked into longer working hours. And it was specifically 55 hours a week and more. But I'm sure it's a sliding scale in terms of the more you work, the bigger deal this is. Working longer hours is linked to various health issues, decreased productivity, lower motivation. Other factors include effects on your social contact, lack of free time, etc. Again, just think about those key phrases. All of those things are going to impact how much time you've got to train, how much energy you've got to train, what your step count's going to be like, whether you're likely to stick to your diet, all of those things. It might only have a small effect, but don't let your work become your life. I think that's just basically the point we're trying to make. And do the best you can in terms of from a practicality point of view. If you're stuck in a job or whatever, do what you can, control what you can. Try not to worry about the rest, but don't let it consume you. Because